Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Vantage Points. I'm Hisham al-Maligi. As promised, today we have a live broadcast with Abdulaziz Awad. He's an internationally recognized Sharia expert. He's a licensed lawyer in New York and New Jersey, and he's the founder of Sharia Wiz, a revolutionary new tool to streamline and make it easier for American Muslims to establish their will and last testament and other items like power of attorney and healthcare directive and more coming in the pipelines as we go. Also with us will be Hiba Maqsood, a digital marketing strategist, an old friend, family friend, and will help us also to explain these issues today. Let me welcome the guests so we can start discussion. Welcome, Abdulaziz and Hiba. Thank you very much for joining me today, and looking forward to having a good discussion and inshallah taking questions from the public and answer them accordingly. I will be juggling. I am the cameraman, I'm the director, I am the host, I'm the person who's monitoring the questions. So if you see me looking all over the place, don't mind me, and I will take it from there. So Abdulaziz, first, we had a one-on-one on Sunday with you discussing Sharia Wiz and the story behind its start and what are the benefits to the Muslim community. Can we summarize in a nutshell why this issue is even on the radar of Muslims? What is the religious backing of such issue? Take it away.
First of all, assalamu alaikum wa salatu wa salam ala sadiq al-amin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you very much for inviting me and having this opportunity to engage with your listeners and your viewers. In a nutshell, if you want to look at a historical context, is that in pre-Islamic Arabia, only the eldest son or the son that was able to go to war and to work inherited the estate. Women were not inheriting. So as with everything else that Islam and the message that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had initiated in the 7th century was an absolute overhaul of the existing structures of pre-Islamic Arabia. He wanted to overhaul that race, creed, tribe was not the anchor for your belonging, that you belonged based on your conviction, based on your belief in the oneness of God. So that was the first revolutionary change, is taking Arab, pre-Islamic Arabs outside of polytheism, outside identifying by tribal lineage, to becoming brothers and sisters in the oneness of God, no matter what tribe. So that was the first step. Now the next step is there has to be a restructuring of the economics in pre-Islamic Arabia. So what were the first things that he had to tackle? Economic inequity. First thing is ending the practice of riba. If you read the Quran, it is throughout the Quran, it's laying out the framework that an equitable, just society has to be economically just, and that wealth cannot concentrate in a small portion of the society. And riba was the key reason that wealth circulated with the rich, with the small group. And he had to create a new system based on sharing risk and not giving money as a commodity, and explaining that we are entrusted with this money, that we don't own this money. So that was another economic transformation in the prophetic Quranic message, is that riba has among the highest capital sins that the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran have discussed. Now that also comes with economic equity, is gender equity. If we look at the last sermon of the Prophet Muhammad in his addressing of women, if you look at a situation where the Quran constantly women equity as a component of the moral framework. So this is not an issue of just reform. It's anchoring that the equity and gender equity is part of the moral divine message. So women have to inherit. So in what the prophet did through revelation that God had revealed to him in Surah An-Nisa was basically saying, this is an apportionment from God. You have no leeway and discretion here. Women are receiving their inheritance, whether you like it or you don't. You cannot disinherit them. So this was a massive revolutionary change in a pre-Islamic society that was driven by male dominance, male control, and patriarchy beyond what we can understand what patriarchy is in modern terms. So that's where the Islamic law of inheritance was born. It was born a transformative purpose to create economic and gender equity. Now, many viewers may say, well, but women are receiving half of the share of what the male does. Well, in that historical context, they were receiving zero. And in the Quranic message, they're receiving half of their sibling, of their brother. But in many circumstances, women receive more than the male counterpart in some survivorship scenarios. And in some scenarios, women inherit and men don't. But the issue regarding the gender inequity, the perceived equity out of the 50% of a son's share, is that the Quranic message and the Sharia, which is anchored on the Quranic message and on the Sunnah, have created these financial obligations that are gender specific. So you have a gender specific obligation on a male side that is not on the female side. So a son has an obligation to support his parents. He has an obligation to support his sisters. He has an obligation to support his spouse and his children and his grandparents and his grandmother. So these are by law. So when you look in a fiqh book, you look at the section that's called Nafaqat al-Aqarib. So in Nafaqat al-Aqarib, it is gender-specific obligation from a male to a female and to non-female obligees. So that is one reason that there is an issue of the husband of the son receiving $100. He's not receiving the $100 free and clear. His sister is receiving $50. She's receiving it free and clear because she has obligations of support from him, obligations from support from her husband, obligations from support from her father. In addition to some of these other circumstances, is that a male also has an obligation to pay a mahr and has an obligation to pay maintenance. So this was pretty equitable in the socioeconomic structures of pre-Islamic Arabia. Now, we as American Muslims, we take account into our new structure of capitalism, the breakdown of the extended family and the focus on the nuclear family. Women are highly educated, earning more money than their brothers or their uncles and what have you. So now these are some of the structural economic changes that the Sharia will take into account, because the Sharia is based on the circumstances. The Sharia is not an arbitrary legal system. It's a system that is totally grounded in the socio-economic and familiar circumstances of the times. So for those reasons, we took these into account in our crafting of Sharia Wiz. And Sharia Wiz provides some solutions to these inheritance issues that we can take into account as an American Muslim preparing his estate plan. So that's kind of a basic outline of giving you an idea of what is the impetus or intellectual impetus behind Sharia Wiz and behind us looking at the Sharia as an epistemology that produces knowledge that we could rely upon to provide solutions for American Muslims. So I think that's a good intro.
MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair for this intro. So welcome, Hiba. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, with this introduction, tell me about your involvement with Sharia Wiz. What do you think about it? And especially the component that Abid mentioned about the distribution between men and women in the inheritance of Islam.
Sure. So, welcome everybody. I'm Hib Maksud. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a digital marketer, and I've been involved in a lot of Muslim organizations in the past 2 years, proudly. And when Abid actually approached me at the beginning of this year, he said, I want you to work with me. I have a product coming out. I branded it with the word Sharia, and it's about death. And I thought to myself, oh, that's a challenge, but I never backed down from a challenge. So I know he got very technical, and mashallah, the Abid's knowledge is incredible. But I'm gonna sum it down for everybody in a couple of points. So there's actually a lot of things I think in our deen that are fascinating, and that if you delve deeply into, you'll be, really, really surprised at the beauty of it. My gut reaction when I saw inheritance laws was definitely one of, sort of rejection, right? When you look at it, you're like, wow, okay, so as a wife, I only get an eighth, and how's that fair, and whatever. But the reality is that if you look at everything in our deen, a lot of it on the surface level seemingly seems really difficult, right? Praying 5 times a day in the middle of the day, and you have to wash up, and that involves removing your hijab to do your hair and your ankles and your feet in the sink, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. Fasting 30 days. I mean, just having this conversation with non-Muslims is always interesting to me. And even just our pilgrimage, or, every other difficult thing seemingly in our deen. But two things are, if you know anything about all these prescriptions Allah gives us, is, that they're all good for us, and they're meant for us to, see the beauty in them. And similarly, the will follows basically the entire direction that Allah instructs us from the very beginning of the Quran. Right after, the Fatiha, you have Surah Baqarah, and Allah gets into business. I always wondered why contracts were mentioned, in Surah Baqarah. And then, throughout the Quran, there's really, really, big consequences for dealing with riba. And zakah is mentioned alongside prayer throughout the Quran. And so it seems really understandable and plausible that Allah, who actually is the provider of that rizq, is going to direct us and how we are going to leave it behind. And again, I go back to my first point. It was difficult at first to look at it, but like everything else in Islam that has rahmah, there are solutions. And so when Abid, kind of explained to me the solutions that he came up with, I really thought they were really important, and this is why I joined this project, because first and foremost, we have to address the issue of this is a fard. It's something that we should all be doing. But secondly, it's good for you to do a will in general, because in America, there's this fallacy that when I die, everything will be fine. And the reality is, it's, as we've seen in a lot of families in the masajid, we hear stories of, families that either fight in court, or, they're in trauma over the death of whoever it was in their family, and they don't want to deal with this. So it's also just responsibility on our part to think about, leaving, the burial rights, and who is guardianship over the children. But, also importantly is to think through, okay, so, I have a certain amount of wealth, and Allah has asked me to do it a certain way, but that He asked me to do it a certain way, and also gave me ways to make it work with, my lifestyle. And as long as I have the right intention, it'll work out. And that's exactly what Sharia Wiz is and does. And that's why I think it's a remarkable product.
So let's walk through Sharia Wiz. I'm someone who just logged in on the website. This is how it is. It's on the website that when I log in and I start the process, or how does it work?
So real quick, you could, play around with the calculator. Everything is free. I think the Cliff Notes version is that everything is free. You get to do your entire will, and you actually don't even have to pay for anything until you're ready to execute the will. And it's funny because, some people told me when I mentioned that, they were like, well, maybe people will steal it. I'm like, look, if you're on a website, it's all about following Sharia and you need to steal, you have other problems, you know? But the reality is, it's very, very economical. Anyone who's gone to a lawyer will tell you, you're looking at least $1,000, if not two. And this product is lawyer quality. It has the highest level of encryption. We actually use Amazon servers for our platform, and you can go through the whole thing and play around with it because this is a big decision. But the best thing about Sharia Wiz is that you can actually, you have unlimited edits. So even if you execute your will, so after you pay for it, you print it out, you get a witness to sign it, and you give it out to the people that are going to help you distribute it. And you change your mind in 5 years, or you came into more money and you want to think about how to distribute that different. You can actually go in, edit it, and make changes, and then just repeat the process. So the calculator allows you to look at, what the Quran says, point blank. A lot of people get scared by that, but reality is if you've ever used a zakat calculator, they kind of work the same way. They take a general overview of your wealth and you look at the percentages, but you then have to calculate a lot of other things. And you can only do that by actually going through the questions. And the questions are an algorithm based on your circumstances. So the genius of it is it takes a lot of American Muslims, into account, mixed blended marriages, non-Muslims, people who are converts, maybe don't have Muslim family members. There's also a big section on leaving a sadaqah jariyah to your masjid or our exclusive partner, Islamic Relief, as a sadaqah jariyah. So there's lots of options and things you can think through. But what you need to really do is, go in, register, go through the whole product, think about it, talk it over with your family, and then go back, execute it, and actually not execute literally, but
Yes. So Abid, thank you, Hiba, for that. So Abid, let me ask you this question. You're a licensed lawyer in New York and New Jersey. If someone wants to go to a lawyer, private office, and wants to do a will, roughly how much? Of course, it varies, but around ball number, how much would that cost?
For a Sharia compliant will, it's going to range from $1,000 to $2,000, depending on the complexities and the needs of the client. And you have to set up an appointment. You got to meet with the lawyer. Of course, it's always advisable to use a lawyer and take the benefits of having advice of counsel and go through everything and help you with the process. But a lot of people want to prepare their wills on their own. There are many online providers and automations, and with a will, online will, you're able to edit it, to change it. You can sit down with your wife, with your brother, with your sister. You can go through it. You can take your time. You have the privacy. You can do it from your kitchen table. And it's at the same time, it's very educational because from our perspective as Muslims, it's a little bit different from a secular civil will, because the process of putting this together, it's a wealth of education, that you're learning your own religious faith and understanding these breakdowns. And you're going to be asking questions and inquiring and looking at the Quran and saying, okay, well, where is this that it says this? Because everything that we automated in our Sharia Wiz forms is based on the Quran, it's based on the Hadith. So you're able to learn, and we are. Somebody said that the website, we had many marketing people working and give us suggestions. So one person says, it seems like half of your website is education. Are you selling something, or are you just trying to educate? And I told him, listen, in the end of the day, this is a project about Islam in America. I mean, yes, we want it to be commercially viable, but in the end of the day, We're trying to provide a service for Muslim Americans. This is a unique Muslim American project because it's a project that is in evolving and adapting to the Muslim American environment. And it's going to force our scholars to engage with these issues. So our halaqah, for example, has more than 50 posts. And we constantly do that. We have more than 50 videos on our YouTube channel that answers everything from what does the doctrinal Sharia doctrine of al-awal to ta'asib, what do they mean, and what is the Islamic law of inheritance, and what does the Quran say about wills. So we cover all of these issues. So that's why the process of doing Sharia Wiz, it's educational, it's engaging, and the objective is to make you know your faith and know your end of life issues better. So that's why we look at, for example, forget just the will. We have a Sharia compliant and Islamic compliant healthcare directive, living will. What's your position on a do not resuscitate order? What's your position on removing artificial food? What does the Sharia say about organ donation? So even on a healthcare directive that everyone should have, we are tailoring it according to our religious tradition and our faith. So these are things that you end up learning as you are making and finishing your end of life arrangements.
Okay, so thank you very much for this. But now you mentioned that it's no less than $1,500 to go to a lawyer for a Sharia compliant will. And now you mentioned the healthcare directive and a power of attorney. Is that included, or that's extra over and above?
I mean, generally, if you go to a competent attorney who handles some of the estate planning issues, an estate plan is going to include 3 documents. So we have 2 types of plans. We have a will-based estate plan, which would be an Islamic will, a Islamic healthcare directive, and a general power of attorney. So that whole package is going to range, like I said, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. I mean, when you talk about New York, it's going to be a lot more expensive than, so maybe in Georgia, it's going to be $1,000, but in New York City, it's going to be $2,000. So New York lawyers and North Jersey lawyers are generally more expensive in their fees than in some other states. Like if you get an LA lawyer, it's going to be like a New York City lawyer. So it is expensive, but like I said, you have also a trust-based estate plan, and a trust estate plan, that's a little bit that's more pricey. That could be $3,000 from $3,000 to $5,000 to prepare a Sharia compliant trust-based estate plan. And we will be launching our trust-based estate plan on Sharia Wiz probably at the end of August and the beginning of September. So not only are Muslim Americans going to have the option of doing a will-based, they can also do a trust-based. A trust-based is more complex, and it's not necessarily applicable to everyone. The will estate plan kind of applies for most Muslim Americans.
Thank you so much. So Heba, you told me that this package of the will and the power of attorney and the healthcare directive all together are for $250 via Sharia Wiz. Tell me more about that. How come you're doing it at this price compared to what we just heard from Abid? And like someone might ask, why is it that low in price? Do I trust it? So give us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So you're paying for someone's time, right? So, when you go see a lawyer, they get like a couple $100 an hour, and that's what you're paying for. But that's the reason why this is so inexpensive is you're doing it yourself. We created a tool. It's, made to be a product for the masses. But the difference between us and, the couple of other products that are out there, which, I have to argue and say that this is definitely has a lot more features that make it more modern. are that we actually have the educational piece. So instead of talking to a lawyer and asking questions, because I know I had questions when I did mine, is that we actually answer that. So you actually are, sort of like self-directing yourself. By the way, I just want to like bring this point home because this is something I think a lot of people miss. So, we all focus on the fact that you have a will, but I think COVID sort of taught us this really serious lesson, and I certainly experienced it. Um, right in the beginning of COVID, one of me and Abid's really good friends, Sif, Lo Arhamu, was a pharmacist in New Jersey, and he caught COVID and passed away like right away. Anybody who's in the New Jersey community like knows him because he was really kind of popular. And so one of the things I actually looked up, because I own a pharmacy, was what I'm not a pharmacist though, was what would happen if something happened to my husband, if he caught COVID, right? Well, guess what? Absolutely nothing. I would have to shut down my pharmacy tomorrow. And I probably would never be able to open it back up, even to try to sell it. So I read this by Googling it, and I found out that at the very least, I should get a power of attorney so that I could handle the business on behalf of my husband, who, he's a licensed professional and I'm not, which is why the pharmacy would have to be shut. But as a person who has power of attorney, I would have the power to hire another licensed professional and make decisions in order to, regulate my life. And I've heard this repeatedly from people who have had spouses who died suddenly. Like they're so distraught, and then they have to get a lawyer and go to court and get access to their husband's assets, which are just in their name, or vice versa, husbands who have to get access to things that are their wife's names. So at the very least, you should protect yourself and get a power of attorney, which we offer on the site very cheaply. It's 2 seconds, and literally, even with COVID, I executed this document. Got a notary to do it at a bank, and basically have this document to protect myself. So the message that I have for people is that it really is a very important thing to do, whether it's your will or a power of attorney. And healthcare directive, I mean, it's a no-brainer because everybody who goes to a hospital, the first thing they ask you is, do you have a health directive? But you need to be responsible for yourself and your family. These are very low cost, easy to get documents, and they will just save you a tremendous amount of heartache going forward. So, even like, I tell people with the will, it's hard, right? You're facing your death. You're making decisions about the reality of what's going to happen to us. But I mean, I believe that when you get comfortable with it and you engage in that responsibility, you'll find that you'll feel so much better after, because you'll feel like, bucket list done, and then you'll just feel peace of mind, and if your situation changes, then it changes. But literally for $249, I mean, to save yourself hiring a lawyer while you're in the worst state ever. I mean, just think about that. Let that sink in.
Right.
And that said, we have a discount tonight for all Vantage listeners. Tonight only, we're going to make it even cheaper. So I don't know if you want me to reveal that now or later, but
sure, we're at the halfway mark, so it's a good point to give the code. And Sharia Wiz, Abid, and Hiba very generously will give 25% discount just to the viewers and listeners of Vantage Points that you can take even off the $250, which is nominal compared to the other prices that you would do outside. And on that note of the prices and tough time, I personally know a friend who had to travel in Ramadan, this past Ramadan, from New York to Texas because a relative passed away suddenly. He was the sole breadwinner. He left a stay-at-home wife with some disability, 2 daughters, and basically there was no will. So just to go to court to start the process, they had to pay a lawyer $3,000 just to start the process. Now, with $250, and now with a discount of 25%, you can do the will, the power of attorney, and a healthcare directive, and you have access to it for the rest of your life. You can edit it and change it at any moment. So MashaAllah, one of the greatest projects for Muslim Americans in recent time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and guide you and give you success, inshallah, to the benefit of the community. And now we're going to reveal the discount. Go for it, Heba.
All right. Well, we decided to make it easy. So the discount is Vantage, VANTAGE. And because I didn't want to do points because then it might be point or points and people forget. So we just made it simple. Vantage, you get 25% off. It's a very limited time offer. I'm only letting it live for a couple of days to make sure people who watch the show get advantage of it. No pun intended. But it's literally like we're not doing discounts because it's already cheap. So we're only doing very few type of discounts for very specific people because Hisham is a longtime friend of mine, and I'm from Staten Island, where he's from. That's why we offered this. But seriously, like I really implore people to get the process started. Do it, even if you want to think about it. Register. We do not spam you. Everything is private. And also we're here to help. So if you have questions, you can email us and you get a lawyer or me. If you're in New Jersey or New York, you'll get free, lawyerly advice because Abid's offering advice on his product only for free. And then I can help you with anything else that you need. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So listeners and viewers, there you have it. Because you watched this show, and hopefully you're going to subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page, and maybe even share this episode, you will get 25% discount using the word Vantage on the website shariawiz.com. And now, speaking about questions, I have a question here from Maria Bell. Two questions. We'll take the first one. Salam, I have a couple of questions. As a convert, let me put that on the screen. There we go. I have a couple of questions. As a convert, when asked to choose my madhab, should I choose the one under which I took shahada or the one I feel influences me the most? So let's address that one first. How would someone, like I myself, I don't consider myself a follower of a madhab. There is a lot of discussion within the Muslim scholarship that for the lay Muslim who's not well versed in matters of fiqh, they just follow whatever is easier for them. So how would someone like me or like Maria choose on Sharia Wiz the process or the like the madhab or the school to follow in planning their estate? So Abid, please take it away.
That's very, very simple. The following of a madhab is a personal matter. You do not have to remain in one madhab your entire life. You can comply and stay within the strictures of the Shafi'i madhab because that's where you converted and that's what you follow. But a time can come that you may want to adopt the Maliki madhab. So there is no requirement. These are not binding. They are personal decisions. Generally, in pre-modern times, belonging to a madhab was about consistency and coherence in your training, in your outlook, and in the scholars that you followed. But in modern times, it's becoming more blurred. So you do have that flexibility in that discretion. So you can pick whatever madhab. Now,
also, do you want to explain that in actuality, they're all the same. The only difference is in Hanafi madhab, it affects your grandkids. But the irony is there's a lot of differences in other points of fiqh. But in this particular point, there is hardly and no difference at all. So you can really just pick al-jamur, which is the majority, and it would almost be identical to the others anyway.
Exactly. I mean, the differences between the schools are very, very minute. There is one major difference in the Hanafi school that considers a grandfather blocks siblings from inheritance, where in the other three schools, they allow the grandfather and the siblings to share. There are some masail mashhura and masail ghariba, these very rare survivorship circumstances that there may be some changes, differences, but by and large, literally for 99% of the cases that you would have, they're probably going to be just the same when it comes to the distribution. And again, keep in mind that the distribution is set forth in the Quran. That is one of the reasons why the differences are very few.
You want to do a second question also?
Yes, we'll take the second, but I want to just confirm something on the user friendliness of Sharia Wiz. Is it easy? I haven't done it yet. Hopefully I'm going to do it this weekend. But would someone like walk through it easily? Heba, do you think you did it? I believe. So can you tell us more about how easy it is to use?
Oh yeah, it's very easy. I mean, I think the most difficult part is that if you don't have sons. So this is the part that I have sort of like hit some resistance from some people I've spoken to, because Islamically the way females inherit is generally if you don't have a son, then it goes to the male siblings of the deceased. So it seems to be hard to sort of reconcile that, like why would my brother inherit if I don't, if I have daughters and I don't have sons. The philosophy behind that is, this was based on a society and what that was, sort of structured a certain way. But the way that you can work that through is to either make certain financial decisions before you die, or you can structure your estate as a trust, which is another product we're going to be offering next, by the end of next month. And that would be able to allow you to change how people inherit. However, at the end of the day, you can't just wholeheartedly say, nah, I'm not going to do it, because this is actually a directive in the Quran for you. So you are, I've spoken to a lot of scholars about this, and at the end of the day, Allah posed something for you, and it's not really on you to say I reject. It's on you to figure out, how can I make this fair? I have the right intention and I want to make this work for me. So you have to give that a little thought, and you have to ponder on it. And that's the part that's going to take you the longest, is if you have circumstances that will, seemingly, make things difficult for you if you don't have sons.
So technically speaking, how easy it is and how much time would it take for a not so complicated process from start to end? How much time would it take?
Again, I'm sorry. I'll leave all the technical questions for Abid.
Okay.
So it really, really depends on your situation. So if, at the end of the day, this is a calculator, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I'll give you an example. I did this with someone else who's also a convert, and actually she's not even married. She has a significant amount of wealth. And it was like, where do I leave my money? And it's interesting because, in pre-colonialism, this was left to the waqf, or the endowment of the state. But we don't have that situation. So we had to actually speak to fiqh scholars, and we found out, well, she could just leave it to an institution, or she could leave it to family. But again, because the Sharia is meant to be, sort of like a guiding path to water, literally, right? It's not, nourishment. It's not meant to be a punishment, as, unfortunately, the media has turned it around to be right now. And so if you go with the right intention and you think about it, like, here's my situation, I want to be fair, here's what I'm going to do, then that's fine. But, if you have a more complicated situation where it's like, well, like, I'll give you an example. Like, one of my husband's friends, who's also a pharmacist, he owns like 5 pharmacies, and he has like, he's half partner or third partner in other pharmacies. Well, that's a lot of wealth and a lot of things to think about. And he has 2 sons and a daughter, so he wants to take care of the girl. So it's going to, one person, it will take her 15 minutes. The other person, it will take him like an hour or 2, But at the end of the day, it's an hour or 2 that's going to cost you $199 plus 25% off, versus sitting in a lawyer's office having this discussion while he's billing me $450 an hour, because that's what my lawyer charges me, not Abid.
Right. So once again, so people understand this, if you go to a lawyer somewhere in New York, you would be charged no less than $1,500 for your will, Islamic will. Now we're talking about an Islamic will, Islamic power of attorney, Islamically accepted, an Islamically accepted healthcare directive altogether for $250, and you get a 25% discount just because you watched this show today and shared it. Thank you so much.
And it does take you, the vast majority of the people who do the Sharia Wiz will complete it between 15 to 20 minutes, mostly 15 minutes. It's that simple and that straightforward.
15 minutes. Wow.
15 minutes. I mean, Hiba talked about an hour and two, that she's taken into account people thinking about all kinds of situations and things that they need to take into account.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody who is moving straight forward, has a wife, has a son, has a daughter, that will take you 15 minutes. You got your will, your healthcare directive, and your general power of attorney. You're done.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
And I think the point to really drive home, because I know you keep talking about the time and the money, but this is actually in Surat Nisa, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is like you're also fulfilling your requirement. And that I think is the most important part. Like, even if you wind up doing it and then you say, you know, I'm going to come back to it after just thinking about it. Literally, it's 15 minutes. Think about it and then come back and execute it. Don't leave it, because this is literally, it. You know, it's one of those things that you actually have to do. And
you have access. You can change it if circumstances change, or you want to change your mind about a component. Then you have access to it. So, mashallah, it's also, there is the well-known hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the believer should not sleep 3 nights without having a will written. Unfortunately, I fall on the part, seems to be like the majority who don't have their wills. Inshallah, I'm going to do it this weekend. Jazakumullah khair for the discount. Let's take the second question from Maria. Number 2, I have no children that qualify as Islamic heirs. They are Christian from my first marriage. So, okay, so mixed families, and, you know, this is a good example.
Yeah, and this is exactly why we created Sharia Wiz. So the first question you're asked when you log in and set up an account, it's going to ask you, are you married? And then it's going to say, is your wife Muslim? And it'll ask you, do you have children? And are any of your children non-Muslim? Once you answer these few questions, the entire process of your form is going to change. Because now, because the children are not Muslim, they're not automatic heirs. But that doesn't mean they're not entitled to inheritance. You can leave them up to 1/3 of your estate as a bequest. So that's permitted. The other issue for children that are non-Muslim, if they help you, if they provide you a service, if you owe them because they're providing you elder care or what have you, you probably owe them money. So if you had some liquidity, you can pay them for their services, that they come, they leave their job, they leave their career to take care of you. And if they do that, you could either pay them immediately, or you can say, listen, son, I don't have the liquidity, but I'm going to acknowledge this as a debt. So I owe you, $50,000. I owe you $30,000 for everything that you've done for me. And I appreciate that. That will be paid as a debt against the estate, and the children still receive their 1/3 of the bequest. And the balance of your estate, you would be able to leave to charity. You'll be able to leave to, if you have other Muslim heirs. If not, you could leave it to charity and to non-Muslim children. And we allow that option in the Sharia Wiz application because we've taken into account many Muslim converts who don't have a Muslim family.
That's an excellent point. Thank you for that. Any other examples that you could tell us for like mixed families like that? What if for example, a Muslim husband and a non-Muslim wife, how does it work in this case from a Sharia perspective?
Yeah, from a Sharia perspective, she would not be entitled to an automatic inheritance, but the husband would be able to give her up to 1/3 of his estate. Actually, she will get more than her Islamic inheritance fixed share.
Explain this one.
You know, because under Islamic law, a wife would be entitled to 1/8 if the husband has children, whether children with her or children with somebody else, or 1/4 of the estate if he has no children. And the non-Muslim wife would be entitled to a bequest of up to 1/3. You cannot leave a bequest to an Islamic heir because of the hadith tradition, la wasiyya li warith. So that's why she potentially can receive more. But we've created numerous Sharia compliant solutions for the spousal issue. You could increase your mu'akhar al-sadaq. It's legitimate and valid and sound that a Muslim husband during his lifetime, without coercion or undue pressure, he decides, I got married, 30 years ago, and my deferred mahr is, $1,000. I want to up that. I want to increase it. That's legitimate. You can increase it to 500,000. You can increase it by leaving the marital residence. Many of my clients and including myself are upping our mahr to leave the marital residence to our spouses. That would be a debt against the estate. So my wife will receive the marital residence, plus she would receive her 1/8 of the estate, which in many small, in the majority of Muslim households, that's basically the majority of the estate. And that's legitimate and fair.
I want to explain why it seemingly is unfair that if I was a non-Muslim wife, I would get less, right? I would get more. It's because if you look at the way Islamic families are structured and the entire family inheritance tree, I'm guaranteed to be taken care of no matter what. By any male in the family, my brother, my father, any male has to take care of me. I don't have to work. I don't have to earn money. All my kids, they would also be inheriting more than me, and they have to take care of me. They're actually going to be hasib. They're going to be, asked about that. So that's actually why I'm required to leave money for my parents, and so is my husband. So your parents are always taken care of by their children also. Whereas for a non-Muslim wife, she doesn't have those same security. Her brother, who might be non-Muslim, doesn't have to take care of her, whereas my brother does. If something happened to my husband, he would have to completely take care of me financially. So, of course, like Abid said, this is a great time to, change your Islamic marriage contract, make it more up to date from how many years you got married, and make sure that you're covered in there. But again, the entire philosophy around the will is to also make you think, right? Let me do it. Allah asked me to do it and come up with a fair way to do it, and make sure everyone's taken care of in my death, right? Like, recently my sister's in-laws family, they had there was a family member that was taking care of their mother for years, and so that person can, under the Sharia, earn more money in their inheritance because they, were caring for their mother who was ill for years. So these things are in the Sharia. Just people tend to always look at surface things and not look deeper, and that's what Sharia does for you. It actually allows you to think through these issues and come up with the correct, valid,
And we're providing these options and these solutions. Keep in mind, we're a strong family-oriented community. So many of us support our parents. That's our obligation. So imagine that your parents are financially dependent on you, and you pass away as that sole income for your parents. Well, under U.S. law, your wife is getting, and the kids are getting the entire estate. Your parents get nothing. So under Islamic law, they're getting 1/3 of your estate. So it takes that into account. I had situations in my family where a parent, a child passed away, and he was supporting his family, but his parents were able to have other children to support them. They waived. They went to the Sharia court and waived their 1/3 in favor of the children because they said we don't need it. But if they were in need and I accumulated wealth, why can't my parents also share in that? So this is where the Sharia system and our end of life is more comprehensive and wholesome. It's not fixated just on your wife and your kids. It's also taken into account your parents and your siblings and so forth. And these are issues that you're able to look at your current circumstances, and you can craft your Sharia compliant will on Sharia Wiz, taking these items into account, even as knowing what the Sharia is going to distribute your estate during your lifetime. You can make some adjustments. So now you just got educated about the situation. You can make those adjustments in your lifetime to help a child or to help a parent, and not alter anything in the Sharia, and it stays pretty solid and sound.
That's excellent. So going back to the example that you mentioned earlier about leaving the house as the mu'akhar. First of all, what's mu'akhar in English? Because Arabs might understand it, but Desis might not.
Well, believe it or not, in the Pakistani pre-printed form, for example, it does use the word mu'akhar and mu'ajjal.
Subhanallah.
So basically, the mahr can be divided into two parts: a immediate part, an advanced part that we call al-muqaddam, and we al-mu'ajjal, and then advanced, and then we also have a portion of it that is called deferred mu'akhar. And the deferred, which a lot of people forget, is deferred at the happening of one of two events: the dissolution of the marriage or the death of the husband. Always, the wife receives her mahr as a preferential debt against the estate. If you go to any Muslim country, you can look at their statute, and it says the mahr gets paid first. And then whatever's left, that's what's going to be distributed according to the fixed inheritance shares.
So basically, the Muslim marriage contract has your prenuptial agreement is that you get a dowry, and then you get it in case of divorce or death. Most people only look at it as in case of divorce, but what Abba is saying is it's also in case of death. So, in the case of, like, if you got married, a long time ago, and maybe you wrote an arbitrary amount, then you're actually owed that money. That's part of the inheritance. But you can adjust that. That's a document that's not static. And Sharia Wiz allows you to do that. And on top of that, we have a part at the end that allows you to put in your request. So you can say, you can leave a request, without coercion, to your son, saying, I really want you to, not take your double share. I want you to give it to your sisters or whatever. And you can also, I believe, you could just put your own request in there and just say, this is what I'm asking my family to do on my behalf. And so I don't know anybody who would see someone that they care about being deceased and leaving their wishes, and then them denying them, because you're gonna have to account for that. No, I decided I'd rather have the money than do what my mom wanted me to do. So, I mean, that's the beauty of it, is we're saying, what, put it in writing, like, do it now. Like, there's no need for you to wait. No one is guaranteed life, right? We all, every day on Facebook, I'm seeing accidents and death, and I'm hearing about things in the masajid. So, no one is guaranteed death, and everybody has to just be responsible and put this document together for themselves.
Right. So the main body is follow the Sharia exactly as it is, and then you have notes to like requesting without coercion, as you mentioned. In the case of the mu'akhar, you have the right to up it and designate anything that you own as part of that mu'akhar. And in this case that you mentioned, you designate or the extra mu'akhar from the estate in case of death or dissolution of the marriage. So alhamdulillah, yani there are solutions, alhamdulillah, for the just for the remaining couple of minutes, I want to get your closing thoughts, and hopefully we can do this more in the future, and more people get to know about the Heba.
Okay. So my closing thoughts were, I had to sort of like face my own ego when I was doing the will, because you always think of it as it's my money and I should decide, but the reality is it's not your money. It's so much more important to do what God asked you to do than to do what you think is best, because at the end of the day, if you read Surah Kahf, every Friday, you'll be reminded in knowing that in a minute, Allah can take this wealth away from you. So get over your ego, do the right thing, get your will done, even if you're, not crazy about, doing it the Sharia way. Give it a chance. It's really much more fair than you think. And at least you tried, and you can, at least, say, okay, I tried it. It's not for me, but you should really give it a try. I think it's a fantastic product, and I think you should focus more on the fact that you're doing what Allah asked you to do than what you want to do. That's my closing thought.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Heba. And Abid, closing thoughts?
You got nothing to lose to check out Sharia Wiz. Go to Sharia Wiz, establish an account. You don't have to put a credit card. You will be able to do your entire estate plan. You will see all of the documents. You will review them. You will read them. And if you don't like what you read, if you don't like what's in these documents, you have no obligation to pay. There's no surprises. You do not enter a credit card until you decided everything you reviewed, every single page, every single line is consistent with what you want. So you have nothing to lose. Go for the journey, go for the education, learn about your faith, because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that ilm al-fara'id is half of knowledge. The Islamic law of inheritance is half of knowledge. And that my ummah, the first thing they're going to forget is going to be ilm al-fara'id, the law of inheritance. So this is an attempt to try to educate Muslims about our ilm al-fara'id that our Prophet Muhammad directed us to keep in mind and not to forget.
Jazakallah khair, Abid. And brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Abid Awad is the founder of ShariaWiz.com, a revolutionary new tool to streamline and make it a much easier process to do your will, last will and testament, power of attorney, and healthcare directive all together for $250 that you do it yourself. And you have access to it for the rest of your life. You can change it when circumstances change, or if you change your mind about a certain thing, all for $250. There was an example of a Muslim brother who passed away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him.
Allah.
Passed away this Ramadan in Texas. He didn't have a will. He left a stay-at-home wife and 2 daughters. And they had to pay a lawyer $3,000 to get into the process of distribution of what that deceased husband would have liked it to be. So $250, and now with the generosity of Abid and Heba and Sharia Wiz team, they are giving you 25% discount for the next 2 days if you use the code VANTAGE on ShariaWiz.com website when you purchase the package. So 25% off $250. Go for it. Do your Sharia, do your will, power of attorney, and your healthcare directive. Inshallah, we will do this in the future again. If you have questions, you can send them to info@vantagepoints.tv. And Abid, also tell us, other than the website ShariaWiz.com, is there any certain email or phone they can call, or it's contacts on the website?
The contacts are on the website, but it's very easy. Help@ShariaWiz.com. help, HELP, at Sharia, SHARIAWIZ.com.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Abd Awad and Hiba Maqsood. Looking forward to having you next time.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this has been Vantage Points with Hisham al-Maligi. There are hashtags and there is a hashtag. This is the hashtag. Take care, America.